ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि संगं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा. This is one of the most important shlokas of Sreemad Bhagawad Geeta. You can mark it. Brahmani adhaya karmani karoti. He who does actions offering them to Brahman. And then sangam tyaktva, abandoning attachment, is not tainted. Lipyate na sapapena. He is not tainted by any sin. Just as a lotus leaf remains unaffected by the water in it. Padma patram iva ambasa. Lotus is not tainted by the water in which it grows. The water particles, the water droplets slip away from the lotus petal and the lotus remains as fresh and untainted by the water. Brahmani adhaya karmani karoti. First of all, I have to have faith. I have to put my belief in a superior existence or supreme existence. Does supreme exist or not? The story has to begin from there. We have taken it very casually. We won't even know as to whether at some point of time in our life we were non-believers or not. Maybe. We were born believers. This negative thought never came in our minds. Or is there anyone who can say that initially I never believed in something superior or supreme existing in the world, but slowly I developed that faith, or maybe I don't even have faith as yet, but now I have some belief. There can be some such people, or there can be many such human beings also who even today do not believe in the existence of the supreme reality because of non-availability of perceivable proof, right? It has to be tangent for them to believe the existence of supreme, whereas it is actually intangible. Why? Because it is non-available to the senses. Imperceivable it is. That which cannot be perceived by the senses is called as unmanifest. Aprakat Brahma, unmanifest. Since it is not perceivable by the senses, therefore, I, the perceiver, rejects the idea of the supreme existence, forgetting that can I actually perceive the expanse of this I-ness? Is it under my perception? How can I perceive the I-ness also? I am, that's all. I cannot perceive this I-ness. So, this I-ness essentially is Brahman. But if conditioned and tainted by the gunas, is becoming an ego. So, I have become an egocentric individual who was originally that Brahman, which remains untainted because of its being infinite. eternal and non-dual. I have to take shelter of that Brahman. Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yah. So I have to give up the attachment to the doership, attachment to the fruit of actions, attachment to the gunas. This I-ness is attached to guna, is attached to doership. This I-ness has to detach itself. I cannot remain independent because I have fallen in the habit of hanging on to something. This mind has become dependent. The dependence of mind on its objects is called as attachment. So, if I want to detach myself from the objects, I will have to find another point of attachment. If I want to detach from the objects, then the mind will have no basis. So the mind has to hook on to another something so that it can drop the attachment to the objects. Now, other than objects, we have only one thing, and that is the subject, right? The subject is ego here. So, ego cannot get attached to ego. So, therefore, the rishis would have analyzed this problem, okay? And therefore, they suggested that do one thing, till you find the reality, you give name to the reality and attach your mind to that. If I attach my mind steadily to the reality, then the falsehood will fall automatically. Like if you are supposed to climb up the stairs, then would you put your foot first on the second step, or you will leave the previous step without taking the step forward? Only children jump like that, no? We first put one foot on the second step and then we lift the other leg to the higher, to the razor. That way keep climbing up. Now suppose I leave both the legs from the previous step. I'll have to jump up and I'll fall. I don't do that. I put my foot steadily on the razor first, the next one, and then only I pick up the previous, another leg from the previous one. So, the steadiness of my putting the foot ahead will determine how conveniently I can detach myself from the previous step. Now what happens for a seeker, in the case of a seeker, he is not very steady in his faith to the higher, but he wants to drop the attachment to the lower or the world around him. So, not only that, again and again the objects come in front of him and he gets lured by them, but also in the course he starts losing faith on the Supreme as well, which is extremely harmful for him. Brahmani adhaya karmani kurvat. In this, it is very important that we have definite faith and conviction without having much idea of what reality is in Brahman itself. That will depend upon my reverence to the Guru Parampara, no? Who else will tell me about Brahman? We can find out of anything and everything in the world from the experts. But to know about Brahman, we have to sit at the holy feet of a Guru who is going to tell us about Brahman. And how much faith will I put in him? It will depend upon that how quickly I detach myself from the worldly objects. Suppose I do not detach myself from the world. Can I have faith in the Supreme then? Can I have faith in the Supreme without detaching from the world? Why not? I can have, right? In fact, the seeker will have that kind of faith only, that I don't consider the world to be false, but yes, I do believe in something that is beyond this world and which is supreme or God or Brahman, whatever you call. Then what will be the condition of that seeker? He is not detached from the world, but he is a believer of God. It is somewhat like this, that you are a rich man but acting poor. So you have locked your wealth and you are begging. Instead, the other one was better. He says, I don't believe in anything supreme. He is anyway poor, so it's fine. A poor man is begging anyway. Is crying, cribbing, grabbing, running after the objects, it's fine. But I, the believer, has no reason to do so. The child is crying over a game of Ludo. But you don't expect the mother also to cry with him if the mother is defeated in the game. Because the mother is sure that it is a game. A loss in the game is not permanent, no? So we have to develop this by putting our effort in this direction. Now, what direction of effort is required? As we decided that we have to hold on to reality without much knowledge of it. I have to put my faith in reality to get detached from unreal, that's all. To get detached from the world. At present, either the world is real for me or relatively real for me. It doesn't matter. But at least let me try not to get attached to it. For that I'll have to practice. To spend more time with the divine reality. So how much of that time do I spend with the divinity? 5 minutes in the morning. That too sometimes without taking bath, most of the time. I do japa and all by the time I take bath, because after the bath I have no time. Under the circumstances, how can I detach myself? If I don't detach myself, it doesn't matter. The only problem is that it will bring hordes of difficulties for me. It is going to inflict upon me all the miseries of life, all sorts of sufferings. Why? Because creation is considered to be dukkha yoni, womb of sorrow. We cannot find peace and happiness in the world. Why? Because it's born out of sorrow. The sorrow of forgetfulness of our true nature. Okay? It is a great sorrow. Suppose tomorrow in the morning when you wake up, you have forgotten who you are. How miserable you will become. Thank God, every morning in that I remember who I am. I don't have to ask others. The saints are telling the same thing to us. Hey, you have forgotten who you are. I am reminding you. And you are rejecting this thought that you are Satchidanand and you are trying to solve your problems of this falsehood day in and day out. Forget it. Be sure, rest assured that you are Satchidanand. Deal with whatever happens remaining unattached. How to do that? Brahmani adhaya. Take refuge of Lord and continue. The seeker will come out of doership. The question remains, one very important question remains, which is answered by Bhagavan here in the same shloka, the last 1/4 portion of the shloka, okay, which is very important. Padma patram iva ambhasa. The question remains, in this case, all the negative activities or thoughts, cruelty, you can think of anything negative, okay, is also attributed then to Brahman. Why? Because under the shelter of Brahman things are happening. So you can inflict pain on others. It's different that you don't want to be pained, but you are free to pain others, bring pain to others. No. Because it's not a lip service. It is to be actually inculcated in our being, To be with Lord, I have to inculcate certain virtues. And when I become virtuous, there is no question of my negative activities anymore. So it is not that on one hand I am a believer of God, on the other hand I remain a crooked fellow. It is not possible. I am denying the reality or the divinity if I continue with my mischiefs. So that should be the attention of the seeker on himself, right? So therefore Bhagavan had told to become an observer. The seeker has to become an observer. When we become an observer, we have to identify with the divinity. So therefore the divine impact will remove the negativities as well. And then the seeker acts as untainted as a lotus in the water. He cannot commit any sinful act anymore. What prompts a sinful act is the desire, no? If the person is motivated by desires, then there are possibilities of negative activities. If the person is motivated by divinity, then there is no question of any negative activities. So I have a choice. Either I get motivated by the divine or by my desires. Both are beginning with D. But they are poles apart. So what is the source of your inspiration? The divine or the devil called desire? That's all. So if I want to get motivated by the divine, I have to have faith and belief in the divinity. Let anything happen, let me not say that the divinity does not exist. Sometimes in depression or frustration, a seeker will say, this Bhagavan does not exist. What did he do for me? At that time, we become illogical. He is not a separate entity who is going to do things for me. So why should I say such illogical thing even in greatest grievance or sorrow? So the seeker will have to have proper understanding of the divine's function, and therefore one or two more shlokas might be required.